Afternoon, everybody. Today is December 17th, and the Board of Commissioners Workshop meeting is called to order. Well, will the City Clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Black.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hodges.
Here.
Commissioner Weinstein.
Here.
Commissioner Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Douthard.
Present.
The floor is now open for public comment on anything that is not on the agenda.
I'll get through it here.
You can give those to the City Clerk.
I'd like to talk about
State your name and address for the record.
Roger Gerstein, 171 East Madeira Avenue, Madeira Beach.
Roger, if you have handouts, you can give them to the city clerk. She'll pass them.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to address the situation that we had at the marina last week concerning the marina manager's position. Obviously, the decision was made to hire somebody, and I've got a lot of questions, or one big question, actually, obviously, about the hire that was made. In front of you is the posting of the job that was put on the website. Has a list of requirements and a list of preferred skills, experience, and whatnot. I prepared a few visual aids, and this is basically a synopsis of what you have in front of you. It lists out the requirements that are posted on the job listing that the candidates for that job should have, okay? We have one person in this room, and he's been working at that marina for 17 years. He checks off almost every single box on that job posting. Okay? He was not the person that was hired. The person that was hired was this person here. Okay? He checks off 2 boxes on that job posting. The fact that he has a college degree and a Florida driver's license. He's been working with Madeira Beach for 14 months as the parking lot enforcement officer, okay? Brian Crabtree has a whole list of items that he's done in his 17 years working at the particular marina that you guys wanted to hire the marina director for, manager for. Again, I don't know how this decision was made. I don't know. I talked with Bob on Friday about it, and I never got an answer as to how, why, or why this decision was made. I know that this man did not make this decision on his own. I said, and I also know that this guy did not wake up one morning and say, I'm going to go for the marina manager's job because I'm so qualified for it. I want to know who pushed the button, who told him to go for that job, and who told him to hire this guy. That's the question I ask all of you. Anybody have an answer for that?
I'll answer that question.
Okay, Bob.
By the charter, I hire and fire.
Okay.
I hired Mr. Rao, who has more qualifications than you put on your list there. I'll be more than happy to give you all of his qualifications. You can pull up.
In the marina business?
No, sir. He has other qualifications, but I'm not going to debate the issue with you.
Well, that's why I'm here, Bob. I tried to get that out of you on Friday, and you wouldn't give me any answers to those questions. You hired somebody that has no marina experience whatsoever, and now you're asking the fellow that was running against him to train him for his job. Are we providing on-the-job training now for people in Madeira Beach that take these jobs?
Public comment is for 3 minutes. Your time is up. I apologize that we can't give you more time. On the other hand, the board had nothing to do with this decision.
I know, but you hired this man to make the decisions, and he's making the decisions for Madeira Beach that we have to live with after he's gone, and you're gone. And we've been doing that for the last 5 years. We've been living with these decisions that are affecting us for years to come, and the city managers are all gone, and they make these decisions, and we got to live with them. And here's another one. We're going to have to live with this.
It's not a time. It's that strictly. It's comment, not question and answer. If you want to,
I'm not getting any answers, though. I'm questioning. I asked a question.
I'll be more than happy to meet with you again, Roger, but we're not going to deal with this in this venue.
And I'd be happy to meet with you as well.
Okay,
Both of us would be happy to meet with you.
great. I'll look forward to it. So I appreciate your time, and Bob, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else wish to speak? Public comment is now closed.
Madam Mayor, before we begin,
Let me also
yesterday,
just address that last point before you go on, Mr. Andrews, Commissioner Andrews, if I could. Mayor, the hiring and firing of employees is the city manager's duties. If you would like to meet with the city manager, that's fine, but I don't recommend that he meet with you regarding hiring and firing of employees other than the city attorney, city manager, or city clerk, which under your purview.
Thank you.
Sorry for the interruption, Commissioner.
no problem, no problem. Before we start, due to our discrepancy yesterday about the staff turnover percentage for 2018, I asked Clara to print out Mr. Evans' memo on the subject straight from the 2019 salary and compensation study. I would like to be able to place that as letter H for today's conversation. Probably take 2 minutes, just want to go over the numbers.
Madam Mayor, I think that we've already determined what our workshop meeting agenda is. I suggest if we want to talk about this item, we place it on another agenda. Is that proper? I mean, that's the proper thing to do.
That's proper. We need a consensus to do that, so.
Oh, okay, well,
Well, you flat out called me a liar yesterday, Madam Mayor, so I would just like to present this to you. I've shown you this 3 times. It's on your dais. If you just want.
Excuse me, we're not going to talk about this at this time. If we're going to, I'm going to ask now, do we have a consensus?
Okay, let's ask if we have a
Do
consensus.
we have a consensus to put this as letter H?
okay, I don't want to talk about it today. I'd be happy to talk about it at another workshop, but I think that we've already addressed all the items, and we certainly have got our little agenda full, so.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, if I may.
Please.
I was asked a question to verify these figures, and I have them, but I really wanted to confirm them, and I mentioned this to the city manager just before this meeting. I wanted to verify them with Karen Paulson before I gave them to the commission.
All right. Thank you.
Walter, we have a memo right here. Memo, it's a staff memo that came out from the city manager. We could verify it here in 30 seconds. If you just look at it and say, Doug, you were right, we can just drop it. We don't even have to bring it up at another workshop. You called me a liar yesterday in front of my constituents.
I'm asking for a consensus whether we're going to add
Okay,
it.
well, I say yes.
No,
And I say no.
Do we,
I'll say yes also. We've had workshops before where we added things to the menu itself. You know, I don't see what the big deal is right now not to add it for just
Well-
a few minutes.
I think I would like to have more discussion with the Director of Finance before we have this.
Madam Mayor, this is a published document from your former city manager. And actually, it's through Walt Pierce, Director of Finance, and Karen Paulson, HR Financial Coordinator. It is about the 2019 salary and compensation study. I quoted numbers from here yesterday, and for the 3rd time since I've been on this board, you told me my numbers were incorrect. This verifies where I got my information from. And now, once again, just like yesterday, you don't want to talk about it because it makes you uncomfortable. Fine. I'm just saying, we're going to talk about this at some point. Okay? And by goodness, we have added 3, 4, 5, 7 things to workshop agendas before. So stop it, you guys. This is getting ridiculous.
rest of the consensus.
We can talk about it, and we will talk about it, but today is not the day. End of story.
Thank you.
Did you take a full consensus? Did you take a consensus?
Yes.
you can't hear you on the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Dowd.
Did we get the results of the consensus?
Okay. All right.
Clara, do you want to read the vote, or I think she's asking for the what the?
Yes. Commissioner Andrews said yes to discuss. Commissioner Weinstein says no to discuss. Commissioner Doubtford says no. Commissioner Hodges said yes.
Vice Mayor Hodges.
Vice Mayor Hodges, I apologize. So it was 3 to 2 no.
I think it wasn't to discuss, but to add to today's agenda.
To add it to the meeting as agenda item H. Sorry.
First item on the agenda is RCS Pinellas Incorporated from Ms. Melinda Perry. She's going to talk about what they do for everybody. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon. I'm Melinda Perry, Chief Operating Officer with RCS Pinellas. Thank you for having us. And our President and CEO, Kirk Ray Smith, will actually go through the presentation with you. So, Kirk.
Ms. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for having us. Really appreciate this opportunity. I'm only going to take about 45 minutes. Is that too long? Okay, just checking. All right. I didn't know. I just asked. But no, I'll be brief. I'm Kirk Ray Smith, President and CEO of RCS Pinellas, and I have a very, very brief presentation for you. You should have some handouts in front of you. And we proudly serve over 130,000 individuals living in Pinellas County, and we do that a number of different ways. And so one of our greatest challenges is obscurity. Just not enough people know who we are, let alone the services that we provide. And really what we do is we try to address domestic violence by providing services and program and shelter for women and children who are in imminent danger, and also outreach services as it relates to human trafficking and a number of other services around domestic violence and just violence of any type, whether it's elder abuse, economic abuse, emotional abuse. We also provide, we address food insecurity. We have about 75 sub-sites across the county, food pantries, food banks, dining halls, again, to address food insecurity. And that includes on college campuses as well, so USF as well as SPC. We also address homelessness by providing temporary shelter for families. In Pinellas County, there's only 180 beds available for families facing homelessness. That's the total number. So if you have a child, most shelters will not take you. However, at RCS, of the 180 beds that are available in Pinellas County, we facilitate 50% of those beds. And we also provide affordable housing, and the whole intent around that is to move families to self-sufficiency and someday market rate and ultimately a mortgage so they can become contributors. And then we address a number of basic needs such as energy assistance and rental assistance. So we have a really short video that I'd like to show you. And this sort of sums up a little bit of what I shared, but it gives you an idea in terms of the numbers when you talk about the impact that we've been able to make. so for the sake of time, again, I won't go through every slide because this really is a snapshot. But I do want to reflect your attention to the slide here around some organizational facts. And so as I mentioned, we serve over 130,000 individuals living in Pinellas County. We've been around since 1967. And RCS was actually started by a number of churches and synagogues. It was 15 in total that established this organization. And we did not have a paid employee until the mid-90s. Now, obviously, I didn't work at RCS during that time. So by the time I got there, they started to pay people. But we only have 80 employees and over 2,500 volunteers. And as a result, over 90 cents of every dollar goes right back to our mission. And so we do believe in overhead. We think overhead is critical, but we want to be good stewards. And so, you know, the whole idea about today was just to come down and give you guys, again, a quick snapshot of who we are, to know that we're around working very, very hard in the community, addressing a number of different needs. You do have to know that many of the needs that we address there are not going away. They're actually on the rise. There is no poster child when it comes to the folks that we serve at RCS. They look like me, they look like you. So the challenges that we have nothing to do with your ethnic group, race, or pedigree. The reality is that we have a number of issues in our community that I think we all need to take ownership of. And so, again, just want to thank you for an opportunity to come out and, again, share a little bit about RCS. If you want the presentation, I think we might have made that available. You can have that, and then I'll finish with kind of what our appeal is. So we call this our Appeal 365, and people are often asking, well, Kirk, what does RCS need? How can we help? And so it's pretty simple for us. One, we need advocacy. We need people to talk about RCS, bring us up, mention us in the community within your spheres of influence. Secondly, we need volunteers. As I mentioned, we depend on over 2,500 volunteers annually to move our organization forward. And then lastly, we're always in need of financial support, whatever that looks like. We could not do our mission. I always say no margin, no mission. And so it's critical that we're able to generate enough revenue to continue to do what we do. We have about $11.5 million operating budget. $3.5 million is what we have to raise each and every year. So, again, thank you. I don't know if there's any questions. If there's any time for that, I'm willing to answer whatever questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Can't hear you.
Okay. Well, I'm getting ready to leave now, and I want you guys to have a happy meeting from here on out. Okay? Promise
very much.
Thank you.
positive meeting. All right. You want me to keep this here?
Continue the good work you do.
Thank you.
Good information.
Thank you so much for coming and letting us know about the good work that you do. The next item on the agenda, well, I guess I should ask for public comment before we go further. Any public comment on this item? No. Now we have the update on the marine audit and the steps being taken on that to follow the advice of the forensic auditors. City Manager?
Yes, thank you very much. Before we get into this report, I think it's important to realize that this is one of those items that has been very divisive in our community. We have some people that thought that this was good, some people that thought it, we spent money that we shouldn't have spent. That's been debated since 2018 when this forensic audit started, forensic investigation started. What I wanted to address here today is just give you an update on where we were with those items, how we got to the forensic investigation, what happened 2018, all that doesn't matter. If we sit back and we concentrate on the past and try to dig up issues again, all we're going to do is continue that divide within our city and our organization. And I think it's very important we keep focused. We have a number of issues that we have to deal with in the future within our community. And I ask that we kind of concentrate on where we are with meeting the mark in reference to those recommendations, of which out of the 25 recommendations, there are 3 that have been left to handle. 2 of them revolve around the security fence and the gate. Those are being addressed with the contractor that's currently doing the work out there, and we don't have a date yet when they're going to be finishing that issue. But the third issue is the cameras, the surveillance cameras, and we have an issue coming before you in January in reference to approve, so we can do a stage system for the security monitoring. But how we got to where we are, I mean, I think that's been addressed in several levels and several publications, and to be quite honest with you, I would rather just keep us moving forward, and so that's why I asked the Board of Commissioners, and I think, did you want to say something in that regard?
Yep, I just wanted to remind us that the hiring and firing of personnel within the ambit of the city manager is not on the agenda or the topic and shouldn't be discussed today.
Bob, with all due respect, I was the one who asked to put this on the agenda. I will echo Commissioner Weinstein's statement yesterday that we learn a lot from our history to make sure we don't make the same mistakes in the future. There's a lot of questions that have gone unanswered because your predecessor would not address them with, and that's why you got a lot of people here today. He wouldn't address them with just like you saw yesterday in that meeting that we had. He didn't address the Civil Service Board. He didn't address the people that were asking questions about this audit. And the fact is, it's not even an audit, and we're still using the word, okay? What I really wanted to do, as I told you before, a lot of these issues from the past aren't going to go away if we just continue to sweep them under the rug. This was the worst spent money the city has spent. And the problem is, going forward, and I know you want to move forward, but moving forward, there's costs associated with this moving forward. Do we continue to put money into this? And I'll address some of these things, but I put this on the agenda, and yesterday, I put that on the agenda, and I got shut down from any line of questionings because it makes people uncomfortable. Well, get over it, okay? You know what? Sometimes you're going to be uncomfortable when you sit up here. Okay, that's why you run for office. You don't do it so you can say, oh, well, I don't want to talk about that, so let's put this under the rug. I just, I don't, you look at silly things like this. You know what our city reported to the newspapers? We have a press release sitting in front of us, okay? And I made a copy of it so everybody could see it. And the report shows marina losses totaling more than $550,000. I was so mad when I saw the Tampa Bay Times article, okay, when Sheila Estrada's headline was Marina Beach Marina Audit loses over $500,000. Walter, is that a true statement?
If you add in...
Walter, we had this conversation. Please don't lie to me while you're sitting up here with me.
Excuse me a minute. I'm doing the presentation. If you want to ask me a question, but I'm not going to have my staff berated, okay? He'll answer the question that you ask him if you give him an opportunity.
Is that an accurate statement that the marina lost $550,000?
No, that's not.
Okay. This was the publication that came out from this city. Our public information officer sent this to papers so that we could humiliate a 17-year veteran, okay, of this city. Okay? That's not fair. And did we ask for a retraction? Walter asked for a retraction when a good story about me came out after I got fired. He called up Wayne Ayers and sent them a letter, asked for a retraction on that story. Did we ask for a retraction on this? No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Everything in this article, the last line of that cost, approximately $27,000, has been recouped after an overpayment to a vendor. What does that tell you? Is that a reflection on the marina? Why in the heck would that be even in the article? That's a reflection on finance. Are we not paying attention to overpaying $27,000 and now we're going to give credit to the auditor? Or I'm sorry, the forensic examiner? Bob, there's also, and you don't want to move forward, you want to move forward. I've also got, and I asked to get these, and I know why now that they weren't put up here. I've got NDAs signed by many city staff here, okay? Signed on October 31st, 2018. We received the audit. I asked about this in November. Oh, we haven't gotten it yet. We received the audit as a commission. I wasn't on the commission yet, on January 22nd. What in good God's name was happening in November, December, and January? Why were people signing? These people paid for the audit. This was a publicly funded examination. Why was there a non-disclosure agreement? And why, if you leaked any information about the non-disclosure agreement, you were going to be Failure to comply with this request will result in disciplinary action up to and including immediate dismissal from employment with the city of Madeira Beach. What's so top secret? We're talking about a marina examination. So I know you don't want to go backwards, but there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions about this. And frankly, I'm looking at the numbers going forward. Let's look at the numbers going forward real quick. Okay? Look at, how much did it implement these 25 change costs? On page 35, it says, when it says fiscal impact, the cost to do these changes would be $250,000 to $275,000, an additional $125,000 per year. And the only numbers that I was presented after I asked for a side-by-side comparison to the debacle that was going on at the marina and why we had to do the audit was this unaudited 2019 financials and revenues exceeding expenditures by $256,000. Walter, is that accurate?
That is an unaudited figure, but that is correct as it stands right now.
Well,
revenues do exceed expenditures.
Now, did we make money the year before? Did revenues exceed expenditures then?
The year before, per the CAFR, through September 30th, 2018, the revenue over expenditures was $105,122.
And does that count the $50,000 that you took out to pay for the audit?
Yes, that would.
So that would take out, so it was $155,000 with that, right?
Yes, that would include the amount taken out for the audit, yes.
Okay, so let's be more accurate then, because that was their profit, and we took their own profit to investigate them. That doesn't sound quite fair, okay? So I just, and I'm not trying to pick on you, but we've had conversations about this, and I know that you're not, a lot of times I feel, that we're being sold something when we sit up here. You had the enterprise rent-a-car people come in and pitch us, and at the end of the day, I want to know fiscally how that is going to affect the city by us doing that. I don't want to hear a bunch of salespeople selling me something. You brought your boy Nick Roque up here to tell us that we had to act quickly on that $15 million loan, okay? Because we were at historic interest rate lows, right? You said that right in front of everybody. And what happened? The Fed has lowered interest rates twice since that meeting, and almost a third time the other day, by the way. Twice since that
Point of
meeting.
order, Mayor. We're discussing the update on marina audit and the
That's
steps
exactly what I'm
being
talking
taken.
about, Commissioner. I listen to your
talking about a
nonsensical
$15
babble
million.
up here all the time when you go off topic. I'm not off topic. I'm staying exactly on topic. This is what we're talking about, a
Mayor, if
marina
we could
audit.
ensure that we follow the code of civility and stay away from personal attacks.
Great, and she shouldn't be interrupting me in the middle of my statement.
That's true, too.
Thank
We
you.
could set up some kind of a way to have a recognition for a certain amount of
Okay,
time. and go back and forth.
I'll yield my time to the Commissioner.
I would just like to say that we're here to discuss 4B, update on marina audit and the steps being taken on that to follow the advice of the forensic auditors or forensic investigators. The city manager has already said that several of them have been done, and I'd like to know what the rest of them are. So is that fine with everybody?
That's what
I want to know.
about.
Thank you.
Okay, as I stated, the two of the issues involve the security gate and the front fence. As part of the agreement with the Holden property, which is going to be the Hampton Inn, there was an easement that was given as part of the development and an agreement made prior to me being here. Obviously, this has been a project that's been in the works. The opening for the marina, the main entrance, will change further west. It moves about 20 feet, I believe, off the property line, the west end property. 25 feet? Thank you. 25 feet off the property line from the west property. So the fence has to be replaced and the new gate put in, a new roadway that will basically connect into the old roadway, approximately 40 to 50 feet into the current marina property. And that's, so needless to say, we're not going to go in and spend money to put in a new gate and that system if it's only going to be torn out. So we're hoping within the next couple of months we'll definitely have a deadline on that, but we're following it up with the contractor for that development. The cameras, the security cameras, will be on the agenda for the January meeting. We're just waiting for some backup documentation, so you should have that to vote on. It's a piggyback contract from another jurisdiction, so we should be able to move right along. The whole camera project is citywide or city facility-wide, but we are doing it in sections, and the first section is going to be the marina because of this investigation that was done. So we're fulfilling then all of those suggestions that were made. And every one of these items that has come up on the way of doing business, the way of tracking financially, all that is part of the process that we're following moving forward through the finance department and the marina staff on how we're tracking to make sure that these recommendations are basically embedded into the process.
And Madam Mayor and Commissioners, to just add to what the city manager said, we have clearly noticed, and even the city auditor, a difference between the previous year and 2019 and 2018 to 2019. Specifically, the auditor, and the city auditor noticed, along with the finance department, and I included this in my memo, did the on-site fiscal 2019 year-end inventory count, and we noticed noticeable improvements from the previous year, which followed. The inventory reports, along with updated maps provided, were well organized. The wet slips and the dry slips were marked appropriately. The 2 dipsticks for the fuel tank measurements were available where they hadn't been in the previous year. The fuel readings were well organized, and overall, the city auditor made a comment after we did that inspection that he was very satisfied and was very pleased with the improvements that had been made from the previous year.
So Walter, excuse me, why not share the numbers with us then? I mean, if this is going so well, why not put a comparison 2018 to 2019 so we can see? I do have one question for you because we brought it up in another meeting before, and I know we haven't rectified it. What is the commercial fuel revenue at today in comparison to last year? What was last year's commercial fuel revenue? Let's go there.
Well, can I just answer that first?
Sure, you can ask me whatever you want. You can answer
first?
my question when you're done, though.
Yeah, that first question is, that figure of the 256,000 is an unaudited figure.
I understand.
So
but let's not put it out there then.
But
Like
once
I'd like to see a comparison. You have the unaudited numbers. Why don't you just put them out there
Okay,
for us?
I would prefer that once they're audited and once they're approved by the auditor with adjustments or not, that I can compare those to 18 and clearly do a side-by-side comparison.
Okay, so let's go backwards then. So what was our commercial fuel revenue for 2017, or I'm sorry, for 2018 fiscal year? You know what, Commissioner? If you have something to say it into the microphone. Okay, well, okay, thank you.
Commissioner, I wasn't prepared. I've got the 19.
Well, wait a minute. That's what we were prepared for. That's what we were doing. We were going over the audit. We were going over the numbers. You were bragging about how great this is going, and now you don't have the numbers to produce it. And you just use conjecture saying, oh, the auditor said that these are really good things. You have no proof of that. I've got nothing in front of me.
I have figures for 2019 if you want me to.
I would love to know what the difference is between the commercial.
Point of order, please.
What is the point of order? I'm asking the. We're discussing the marina, and we're discussing the audit. And Walter brought up the fact that the marina is doing really, really well now in comparison to 2018. I'm asking a specific question, Commissioner, about how well the marina is doing. I would appreciate it if you just sit there and be quiet until I'm done, and then you can ask whatever questions you'd like. How about that? Walter, back to you. I'll help you out. We were on pace to lose about $275,000, okay, or $250,000 in commercial revenue. Now, you're telling me we made up all of that, plus we're up $256,000 unaudited.
If you want the 2017 compared to 2018 as far as unleaded fuel sales, 2017 it was $1,342,642.
I asked for commercial fuel sales. That's what we were talking about, commercial fuel sales.
Okay, Those I don't have available. The diesel commercial, $431,799.
That was 2017. What was 2018?
551,280.
Wonderful. What are you showing for 2019?
Again, this
What
is-
are you showing for 2019 unaudited?
I don't have that I don't have that diesel figure for 2019. The total purchases for fuel, actual was $1,427,000.
Not what I asked. What, I would like to go back and just ask you why, I just wanted you to be prepared for this. This is what I asked for the whole time. I asked for a side-by-side comparison. That's the only thing I asked for.
And again, Commissioner, once these figures for 2019 are fully audited.
Then why put that number on here? Why subject yourself to that ridicule and put that number on there if you don't know how to explain the number, Walt?
I thought for the time being that it was positive, and that's why I put it on there. I
Right,
saw it
because you're
as-
trying to sell me a story that the marina is doing great and the morale is great and everything is going
I
forward in
didn't
the
say
right
that.
direction.
I didn't say that.
You
I
didn't
just-
tell me in a meeting the other day that the morale at the marina is great and this is going to be a positive
Commissioner.
meeting and I need to back off.
Commissioner,
Bob, what do you,
please let him answer the question.
He
and-
said he didn't say it. I was correcting him. I just wanted to make sure that he knew what I was talking about. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
If I said something like that, I indicated probably it was a tie-in to the inventory and how well they had done from the previous year, and that's why I mentioned that, because clearly the finance staff and the city auditor did see improvement, significant improvement from the previous year. And so if I made a comment like that, maybe it tied in from that aspect that clearly there was improvement, and there is improvement.
Okay.
And
Okay.
every one of these things that I've given a status of, with the exception of the 3 that was mentioned by the city manager, there have been improvement. I mean, there's positive things happening here.
Okay, but how much, so let's recap then real quick. Okay, so our audit cost us $50,000 or whatever it was called, or in forensic examination, or I'm sorry, as it says in the NDA, the fraud audit. That's an interesting one. Was this a fraud? What was this?
The final booklet that was given called it an examination.
Okay, then why was it called a fraud audit in the NDA that you signed?
I think initially that's what it was called, but I think,
Well, I mean, $550,000 was gone, of course. I mean, Marsicano should be in jail.
the final booklet that was given, it's called an examination.
Okay, great. So $50,000 for this examination, $250 to $275 to implement, $125,000 a year to maintain, okay? And now, I'm guessing we lost about $250,000 in commercial fuel revenue, but you're telling me we're making money. So I want to know, maybe the next meeting you can tell me, what line item is this significant jump in, okay, that we've recovered all of that money plus made more? That's what I want to know. And that's what I asked for this meeting, but
I don't remember receiving that request, but
you sat right there and you said, I will have you the comparison from last year to this year. That's what you told me.
then I apologize,
All
Commissioner.
right, thank you. I will be
definitely-
quiet now. You guys can have a conversation.
Madam Mayor, I think the issue we deal with is you have audited figures and you have unaudited figures. And whereas, probably the error that if there was one is that we used an unaudited number that I think in the future, lesson learned, we shouldn't be used. Because until the auditor issues his recommendations and his seal on an audit, I'm talking about our regular CAFR audit and everything else, we can't really use the numbers to weigh one against the other. And I think that's what Mr. Pierce is trying to say. I don't want to put words in your mouth, sir, but
My figure, the way it's worded in my memo, it says, finally, the FY 2019 audited figures for the marina display revenues exceeding expenditures in the amount of $256,353.36.
That's all it says. I don't go into any detail as far as comparing, because I do realize that it is unaudited at this time. And I did indicate it in here for a sole reason that I thought it was positive at this point in time.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, I have an appointment I have to go to for my therapy. So, and the city manager is going to take over with my notes and my minutes will be done.
Thank you.
If I can be excused.
You may be excused.
Yes.
Thank you, Clara.
Is there any more discussion about the audit? Not the audit, about the update of the audit.
Okay, is there any item, have you addressed all three of the items under B,
Yes.
okay, the corrective action, okay, you dry storage map, we got that, okay, thank you.
The floor is now open for public comment on this item. Reese. After Reese. No, Reese is coming. Reese is coming. He's speeding along.
Can you make it up? Okay.
Reese Noren, 363 Medallion Boulevard, still your closest neighbor. Have you missed me? I'm here today to present with you the facts that I found in regards to the forensic examination. What I found, fact number one, by the way, these are bare facts. There's no leaning one way or the other. There's no opinions in them. This was not an audit. How did I arrive at that conclusion? It wasn't too hard, because on the first page, in the middle of it, CRI said it's not an audit. So I was a little confused. What if it wasn't an audit, what was it? So I started, why wasn't it an audit? Well, it wasn't an audit because the parameters or rules for engagement, but that's my military background, rules for engagement. The rules for conducting an audit or conducting a forensic examination are different. And even more important, the result is different. The target is different. It's all different. How did I find this out? Well, I called CRI. And I said, you know, I'm a little confused. It's in here you state that it's not an audit, and yet all of the people in town except me is calling this thing an audit. And what is it if it's not an audit? And so they connected me with one of the auditors, and she was very polite, very helpful. She said, simply put, the forensic examination is a search for fraud. So while I was registering that, I said, well, why not just call it a criminal investigation? And she said, we are an accounting company. We are not a law enforcement agency. Only law enforcement agencies conduct criminal investigations. All we do is search for facts and present the facts, and let the people who have the facts do what they will with the information. I said, thank you very much. And she went on to say that in the CRI examination or organization, they have regular auditors, and they have a team of auditors that do the forensic examinations. Not all of the auditors are qualified for the forensic examination. The team that came here was busy at the time, so she was not one of those. She was just an auditor. But she was very helpful. And I still wonder why everybody, and including the information we gave to the press, called this an audit rather than a forensic examination. Yeah, the words are a little long when you put the two together, but they're not that long. I'm not trying to put anything other than facts in. Those are the facts that happened. The reasons, the intent, is up to whoever decided to call it whatever they wanted to call it instead of what it really was. The far-reaching impact of this, of course, is money. An audit was authorized at an authorized meeting of the commissioners for an audit. The $50,000 was granted for an audit, but an audit was not requested, and an audit was not received. What was requested was a search for fraud on the part of the previous administration and the occupants at the workers, the employees at the marina. And I think we owe those people a word of praise because no fraud was found. What was found was what we all know is the inefficiency of our great democracy. That's what we are. We make mistakes. And this was a mistake. And I think the press should be known, should make it made known to, number one, to all the electorate, that this mistake was made. Thank you.
Helen Price, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue, here in the beautiful city of Madeira Beach. I hadn't really planned on talking, but after sitting here, I don't think Mr. Daniels understands what happened here with his predecessor and why there is such hard feelings about the marina. And I just want to give my 2 cents about what I think. I think it's very odd that in October, a fraud examination was disseminated amongst some leaders in our city, and somehow, once it was determined obviously there was no fraud and no theft going on in the marina, then it somehow turned into a forensic examination, and then somehow it turned into a forensic audit and was presented to us as an audit, which we know it was not. And it's not just from what Reese said. I mean, the people that conducted it did not even call it an audit. The audit itself, the piece of paper itself said we're not an audit. A lot of people in this city got the feeling, as I did, that this was just a way to drum out of town an employee that had worked here for almost 20 years, who was very well liked by everyone except certain people on the commission at that time. One of them has since been kicked off. But it was it smelled like a rat to most of us. And that's why we are questioning this. And when we find out more and more information like now we have a new marina manager with no marina experience whatsoever, it perpetuates that bad feeling. I'm a very concerned citizen that my marina, that I guess about a $2 million enterprise every year and has its own enterprise fund that I guess the city is pulling out as fast as it can make, I don't know, but I have a concern that a money-making entity in my town that is owned by my town, that I'm glad we have a city marina, I think every coastal town should have its own marina, is not going to be run by somebody that doesn't have the experience with the marina. And the job description made it very clear it should have marina experience and preferred a certified marina manager, and we just apparently throw that out the window. So I'm not sure this is ever going to go away unless some of the answers to Commissioner Andrews' questions are answered, and frankly mine as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Dave Marsicano, Certified Marina Manager, 5227 104th Way North, 33708. I'm quickly going to go through Exhibit A, the 25 external control recommendations that was given by Carr, Riggs, and Ingram. One was the system passwords, and they did get put into effect, and I'm glad that they were able to do that. Dual books. It was meant to seem here like we have dual books. The books have not changed. Everything is being turned in exactly as it was the day I left. The Marina system runs off of a Scribble software, which ties into our fuel system. It's one of the best systems out there. City of Clearwater uses it. We were the first in Pinellas County to implement that software. That software is still in use. Number 3, the gate codes. Darn gate codes. They're hard to keep track of. 4, the surveillance cameras. I personally, in my personal email and city email, have quotes going back to 2014 for surveillance cameras. The gate access has been my project from the beginning, along with 150th Avenue. We knew the gate was going to change. That's why the work wasn't done. Number 6, the marina agreements. They were never looked at by the auditors. The auditors never came into the marina and discussed it and came in and looked at any of them in any of our files. They interviewed me for approximately 10 minutes. The closing of books. We closed the book every single day with a Z-tape. On that Z-tape, provided by Scribble software, includes every single discount given on every gallon of fuel that's pumped out of the ground. That fuel, then, that Z-tape with that whole report is turned into your finance department. It's signed off by me. It was typically signed off sometimes a lot by Megan, and also by whoever was closing up that day. I also ran the Public Works Department, so I was unable to actually see every single one. And I'm unable to be behind the cash register, as we are a business that operates 7 days a week. Dry storage spaces and numbering. I drove through the marina today. The wet slips have always been numbered. The dry spaces, until the parking and everything's done, it's never gonna, you can't get it done until the road's done. That's what we were waiting on, but that was a good thing for the auditors to grab hold of. Customer invoice reviews, we've always done that, always numbered. Late fee assessments. The late fee assessments was an administrative decision done by a prior administration, because boats are being kept and boats aren't people's electric bill. Okay? They're paying us $150 a month to store their recreational craft that they use for their enjoyment.
Time.
The rest of this is just...
Hey, Dave, I have a question for you, though. Just, first of all, thank you for your service to the city and to our country. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You mentioned, when you were sitting up here chatting real quick, that you said that you were interviewed by the, I wrote it down, by the auditors or the forensic investigators for 10 minutes. Was that 10 minutes prior to the audit starting? Was it after the results were received?
That was prior to the audit.
That was prior to the audit starting?
Yeah, I actually was an employee of the city when I received the audit. I resigned on December 27th. The audit was not released to the employees until January 11th.
Okay, so, but from October 31st until your resignation, when they had the audit results or the forensic examination results, thank you, Reese, you were never interviewed by the firm of Carr, Riggs, and they never talked to you about their results?
No,
they never asked you any questions about why these things are doing this or what? I mean, you could have run down, I mean, you only got the number, what, 10, 11, but you could have run down these things with them then after the results were had, and
I won't
you probably crossed off a lot of these off the list.
You know what they are.
Okay.
I'm not gonna zip through them all, but I just want to point out the biggest fact, and I'm sorry, Bob. This city released a number and released a statement to the press that indicated that there was $550,687.17 missing. That statement is false. Do we all understand that? Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Nope.
My name is Dan Casey. I live at 573 Johns Pass Avenue. I met the guys at the marina about 5 years ago. I rent I think, the most expensive slip in the marina. I'm not sure. I've been renting it for 5 years. I think I've paid for that slip by now. And I just wanted to say that they've been the utmost professionals. I have never gotten anything free from these guys, not a soda, not a bag of chips, not a gallon of fuel. They've done a great job. Then as far as forensic audits, I own several restaurants on St. Pete Beach, and I just underwent a forensic audit by my insurance company because I was closed for 2 weeks, and they owed me lost wages for 2 weeks. They did a 2.5-month forensic audit of my business and came to me at the end of that time and handed me a check for 2 weeks for $45,000. There is no way in heck that I lost $45,000 in 2 weeks. I cashed the check. I actually opened another business with that check. And I have no idea how they came up with that money, but I liked it, but it was wrong. I did not lose $45,000 in 2 weeks, and that was the result of an insurance company hiring one of these firms and doing a forensic audit of my accounts for 2.5 months. I just wanted to add that so there's a little perspective. Thank you very much.
Roger Gersting, 171 East Madeira Avenue. I just want to address again the Madeira Beach Marina in its own entity is, and I had this conversation with Bob, it's our Floyd's Barbershop. It's where people go to meet. Krabby's Floyd, Dave was Floyd. And so it's a very passionate place in our hearts. We're a boating and fishing community. And to see all this BS go on over the marina when we knew there wasn't any issue with these guys. These are stand-up, great guys. You could call them any time of the day. They'll help you. They'll tow your boat. They'll come out, pump your boat. I've seen them pump my neighbors' boats out several times that have sunk. You threw this forensic audit or whatever you want to call it on them, and it was a witch hunt. And Bob, I apologize if I got you a little flustered there earlier, but it's a passionate item here, and I feel strongly about the marina. It's a big part of my life. I do a lot of stuff in that marina. Do a lot of fishing tournaments, do a lot of boat parades, things like that. And to see these people run under the bus like this, it was terrible. And I just want to...
I'm not flustered, believe
okay.
me. You're welcome to say whatever you want. To me, that's the great democracy that we live in. So, but I do want you to know, and I know you're big on veterans' causes too, and we have a retired colonel that's now overseeing the marina.
Okay. So, I appreciate, and I'm not attacking that person.
Well, it sounded like you were.
Well, only because I'm passionate about the person that didn't get hired. Okay. And the fact that, here's a guy that's been working there for 17 years, and...
We already went through that.
I know, but we didn't reward him with the job he should have had. And that's my personal feeling, and a lot of people have that same feeling. So that's my piece, and I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, I have to make this one comment. This thing kind of started by the city auditor bringing to my attention in 2017, particularly after the end of that audit, that he had some deep concerns. This is the city auditor mentioning to me. I didn't ask him any questions of what he was about to tell me. He brought it to my attention. He said that there were some fuel numbers and numbers in the store that just didn't add up. And that came from him. And from that point on, I made the present city manager aware of it. It kind of didn't go anywhere. And then when Mr. Evans came in, I made him aware of it. As your director of finance and as your treasurer, I think you would think that I would have an obligation to raise a flag. And if I didn't, you would have that against me. And what I did is raise the flag to my boss. and the city manager. And what resulted is this examination. Now, I shared with Commissioner Andrews that there were some things in this audit that I did not agree with, several. But the end result caused some positive things to happen. And if this thing did not take place, the positive things that have been mentioned and talked about, I believe, would not have occurred. And I would do the same thing over again because I have to believe that you hold me in a posture that if someone, particularly the city auditor, brings this to my attention, that I would raise a flag and make it an issue to be dealt with. So I've heard a lot of things today, and that's fine, but I want you to know how this started. And the city auditor every year comes to me and mentions concerns. At the end of 2018, he did the same thing, and I shared them with Mr. Daniels, some of the concerns that he had and some of the things that were brought up, and we corrected them. And anything that the city auditor brings up as a criticism or a problem or an issue, I am the first one to try to correct that, to make sure that we've documented it and we've corrected it so that it doesn't become a worse issue. But, and I hear Commissioner Andrews, and I've had a chance to talk to him, and again, there's some things about this that I did not like. But if you had my opinion, I think that I would probably have it done again or encourage it to happen again, but probably done a different or better way.
Mr. Pierce, you should have not said that. John Hauser stood right there at that podium, and when asked by me if he asked for an audit, he said, my only comments to Mr. Pierce were, we noticed a communication problem between the finance department and the marina. And I said, did any of that include fraud? He said, that was not my area. He said, I recommended that you do an internal investigation to try to sync up the communication between the finance department and the marina. And then he said, and in his own words, but then it morphed into this. That's what John Hauser said, okay? So let's not play John Hauser as, hey, he's the one who told me to do it. That's not what he told you to do. And if you sit here today and say you would spend another $50,000 to audit that marina after what we found out and all the discrepancies that we've had on this thing, I have no faith in you as my treasurer. I really don't. $50,000, $250,000 to implement, $125,000 a year to maintain, and a loss of $250,000 in commercial fuel revenue. That's our results, okay? And I still don't know what is causing the big increase in revenue. Was it because we added 2 dipsticks? Was that what it was? Was it the dipstick adding? Because I still don't know why we paid $50,000 for this audit, forensic examination. I think, and I think everybody in the room knows it right now, that initially they tried to find fraud. When that first envelope was delivered on October 31st, there was none there. So then we started digging, and then we started digging into the activities of the Holton property, and we just started digging and digging and digging and talking about tone at the top. How do you question a guy's leadership if you talk to him 10 minutes prior to an audit? Then when you gather all the information, you don't even give him a chance to respond. How do you do that and say that that's a fair audit or fair examination? So, Walter, I take offense to you saying that you would do it again, because I hope the heck not, because I hope the heck I'm not on this board when we go to a vote for that, to spend another $50,000 for that. And I still haven't heard anybody from the audience today jump up and say, that's the best $50,000 anybody has spent in this city. By far not. By far not. The biggest waste of money we had, besides maybe the salary, the $15,000 salary survey that we're not allowed to talk about today. One more question for you. How did you find this auditor, or this firm? Yes, sir.
Myself, Mr. Evans, and accounting manager, we explored several accounting firms that specialized in in doing this type of examination. And this firm clearly came to the top as providing the services that were required.
Okay. And one last question. I'm sorry, I said one last question before. One last question. You mentioned to me, and I hate to call you out on the spot here, but since we're airing our laundry, we might as well do it. You mentioned to me that you were pretty certain that the city manager knew that this wasn't going to be a $15,000 project from the onset. Would you say that's accurate?
We really didn't know at the time, and the $15,000 was just to get the project started, and if they found sufficient evidence to proceed, which they did.
But they didn't. They were trying to find a fraud audit. They didn't find it. They didn't find significant evidence. It was a fraud audit. Should I show you I got your signature on this. You were investigating a fraud audit. And there's there's no documentation of any fraud anywhere, except for maybe inside the city at this point. But what you told me was he knew initially. And do you remember this ever being discussed in a meeting? Was this ever brought to the board? Was this ever workshopped? I remember him asking for more money for the next $35,000. But you ever remember anybody saying, hey, we're going to spend a lot of money on an audit? Just to your recollection, I'm not asking you to pick a particular day or anything like that. It never came up. I'm going to help you. It never came up. There was never a discussion about it. The only discussion that was ever about this was the day he came asking for more money. Okay? Thank you, Walt.
Any more discussion? Moving forward. Next, we have the annual LMS, which is the Local Mitigation Strategy Verbal Presentation Report. Director Portillo.
Madam Mayor, Commissioner, give us just a minute here. We have to get it back up online.
Just a 3-minute or 5-minute break? Is that okay?
Oh, yes, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Is that okay?
3:08.
We're all here. Where are we? We are reconvened at 3:13. Director Portal.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. It's our obligation as a city to review each year how our community rating service program is progressing, and in particular, since the rating system is so data intensive, it's impossible for small communities to do all of their work, and so oftentimes the communities will band together to try to share some of the research function. In our case, we were really fortunate to be in Pinellas County. Pinellas County's floodplain management program is run by Lisa Foster, who is a national award winner for her program, and she's just very dedicated to bringing all the communities along with the success that Pinellas County has had. So they have made a point of offering services that each of the communities can tap into. And because we do use some of their work and our connection to their work to meet some of our obligations in the Community Rating Service review, it's important that every year we tell you not only what we do, but how the county contributes to that effort. To start out with, the county provides extensive input or opportunity for the citizens to get information on floodplain management, and for the communities to download not just floodplain information, but actual CRS information. For instance, they have a library of data and forms and things that other communities around the country have used that we can use as example. And one of the best things, though, has been that the local property owners within Pinellas County can get online and go to pinellascounty.org floods and choose mapping and be able to put their own address in and get all the information they need about their elevation on their property and what kind of flood protection issues pertain to their individual properties. Also, Pinellas County sponsors workshops and community meetings throughout the county, and when they do that, we participate, well, namely me, participate as your floodplain manager to help answer questions for people throughout the county, so we always participate in that. We also have the input of the fire chief here, who is our local emergency management professional, and the two functions of day-to-day management of the floodplain and emergency management and hazard mitigation are wed together during the community rating service process. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but we have had the opportunity to both participate in these input into the county's program, not only for the CRS program, but also for the local mitigation strategy. So I'm going to give you some examples. This, what that you see up in front of you now is part of a newsletter that the county puts out called Utilitalk, about utilities and the facilities and how to prepare your own property for floods. And they put one of these out every 2 months, and they're available online to all citizens. And again, the place to go is pinellascounty.org flood. And these include, and it is we'll make this available. These include information about phone numbers and websites you can go to for additional information. So I'm going to highlight what Pinellas County does as part of our plan, and then also what the city does to coordinate with that. one of the really important things that they do is we're all obligated to make contact to insurance agents, mortgage lenders, and realtors each year to let them know what flood insurance requirements are and just the nature of the threat to particular areas. Because the city of Madeira Beach, of course, is entirely in the floodplain and is all flood hazard area, everybody that we work with, we end up discussing FEMA requirements and just general flood hazard issues with. However, you can imagine if every city in the county made individual contact by mail with every agent, lender, and realtor, they would get pretty tired of their mailing list and then probably not pay much attention anyway. But we would not have either the staff or the budget to provide them with training and information on an annual basis. So the county coordinates that. They do a mailing and an email contact with every registered insurance agent, mortgage lender, and realtor. And the city of Madeira Beach does its small obligation, which is to contact a minimum of 5, and also just to contact the professional associations. The associations do cooperate to forward information to their members, so everybody gets notice at least twice a year about floodplain issues and insurance requirements as well. That's the letter that you see, the smaller print, that's the example of the contact that they make at the county. Along with just that contact, they do provide mapping information services, and this is an example of advertising that the Pinellas County has taken out in the professional magazine that Pinellas Realtors distributes to remind people that there's mapping information service available to them so that when they're showing property, they can look up addresses and be able to provide the potential buyers with full information. They also conduct certification classes. This is an example of the meeting that was held for training for certification of the realtors. And they do this annually. And in support of that, they do the big training and the flood insurance training, and also they do landscape training and certification for landscape companies. In support of that, on our end, we maintain a library of flood protection information and documents for both documents and websites for people to link to. We publish an annual flood facts notice in the newspaper, maintain record of insurance coverage payments and improvements on individual lots, and provide technical assistance and referrals for insurance coverage. Those are all responsibilities that each city has and that your floodplain manager is required to stay up to date on. Pinellas County also publishes additional information and newsletters on things pertaining to the health, floodplain health and landscape management. I mentioned this a couple minutes ago. They do a certification for landscape management companies. This is an example of some of the slides they used and the handouts that they distributed during their training. The county also provides hazard preparedness and assistance, and of course they operate as the emergency management center for coordination of all emergency programs in the county. So I'm sure that many of you have seen this guide. These guides are all available online and at the county, and they also distribute them through the local library system. The Madeira Beach and its support of those programs, we prepare for hazards by providing land use code and floodplain management policies and development. So you see me come every now and then to make changes to our floodplain management ordinance to keep up with ever-changing and increasing standards. Also, in response to changes to the coast and flood level changes. We also implement flood protection by way of development review and code enforcement, and where necessary, demolition. We provide mailed notice of the importance of flood insurance. We provide notice to repetitive loss properties annually. We provide access to the Pinellas County's Emergency Alert Service and information how people can use the Pinellas County app for staying connected. And of course, we are participate in the emergency management and planning for the county. Pinellas County also provides public information support through its quarterly, actually I think it's every 2 months, Utilitalk newsletter, which is one, this is another example of that, and provides flood risk brochures as well. The city also provides a monthly social media notice on floodplains and emergency management. We track and record the implementation of stormwater systems and maintenance records as part of our annual review. We have to inventory the location and causes of flood annually and make updates to our maps and changes to our policies in order to reduce risk. We have to maintain inventory of roadways and public land improvements as they relate to flood risks. And also, as you know, we contribute to changes in the electric grid for undergrounding, beach maintenance, and the sea turtle and dunes and grassland regulatory protection. Those are all things that we do at our level to respond to changes in the environmental protection aspect of flood management. The Pinellas County also coordinates with everybody countywide to provide all of us training and support. And as I said, they have a library of materials and programs available for the local governments to use. So when we're doing our monthly news input on social media, we can go to their library and pull down, excuse me, pull down examples of notices that they've used. In our case, our library has been created entirely at this point from FEMA documents and circulars, but we also have the counties available to us. And then they also provide a local mitigation strategy, and we can take credit for all of that effort by making sure that we participate in all the workshops and the activities. And what we have had to do, because it's a requirement, in order to get credit for being part of the county's system, staff members need to be actively part of the CRS program with the county and all the meetings, and also the local mitigation strategy update. So we have been attending, either taking turns or all of us going, including the chief and myself, our planner, and then we also have to include local stakeholders. In our case, we used we had the support of the library director and the principal at the school. And so those are the participants we've been using in all of these meetings. But the other things that the city does to respond to the requirements are the sea turtle handouts, the policy and research and the enforcement for sea turtle protection, the GIS inventory and mapping that we've just begun, monthly public service through the social media, the annual letters, and it's a good time to point out that people will start getting their annual notices that they are in the floodplain and that they have requirements. And if they're in a repetitive loss area, those will be going out in January. It usually generates some interest and not too much confusion. Most people are used to getting them, but those will be going out in January. We also create and update the mapping for floodplain, land use, environmental impacts, special hazard mitigation, and conduct annual evaluations of the natural functions and the annual evaluation of shoreline protection, open space, and the support of with programmatic changes if we have identified hazards, additional hazards. So Pinellas County's additional local government support, as I said, they file everything with the library, so the public notice, the meetings that they have, they advertise. They have a really good turnout for the meetings, although we haven't had many people come from Madeira Beach, unfortunately. They do emergency management, the mapping. We, up until recently, have been getting all of our maps from Pinellas County. We will be able to do our maps in-house now, and that'll help a lot. But, and we'll be able to actually provide them more detailed information. And then they prepare the local mitigation strategy. and we participate in all of those. Basically, I think we've gone over all those services at this point. We do keep a log of all contacts we make, because that's one obligation that we have. So anybody that we discuss floodplain management or regulatory processes with, we have to track and report to FEMA. So it's a huge record-keeping function, keeping track of all the various parts that have to go into any permit for building, managing that, and being able to pull the records down at any time. It really is very time-intensive. So Pinellas County has recently updated and submitted its 5-year update to the local mitigation strategy, and these are tied pretty closely with the community rating service because there are so many things in the local mitigation. It's a hazard mitigation plan that they prepare for a 5-year period, and all the communities participate in it, and it helps us. Our participation in that strategy allows us, it provides us the opportunity to apply for grants for mitigation programs and projects. We think that it helps us when we're looking for things, for instance, like funding for the groins, or getting a better ranking when we ask for other kind of mitigation funds for roadway improvements or stormwater improvements. So it's very important that we stay on top of that and make sure that we meet all the meeting and submission requirements as just being part of their team. And they just, this last week, the workshop committee approved the draft of the local mitigation strategy and sent it up to the state for review. So when that comes back, we'll have to let you know how that works in with our emergency planning locally. So we participate this not on the county level, but we have to also coordinate with the regional level and with the state, and at times with FEMA for federal programming, and just work to keep you up to speed. I also wanted to let you know, in case you're interested, that one of the things that the county does is it goes back and looks over procedures, make sure everything worked properly whenever we do have an emergency, when we have to activate the emergency management system. And there is a report as an example for how things worked with Hurricane Irma. The Pinellas County has been getting great praise from the state on how they respond to emergency situations. They were very happy with the red tide response. Pinellas County was really ahead of the issue, had all the paperwork signed and everything in place before this tide reached here. And the state was using the program and the cooperation with locals here as the example throughout the state on how they would want others to set their systems up. So they're very serious about evaluating themselves, or all of us together each year. That was a quick summary. There's a whole lot of work that goes into all of this, and when the final documents are ready, we'll make sure that you have an opportunity to look at the mitigation plan. And if you have any questions about the CRS, by all means, let me know. And we do want to make the public aware that we are here as a resource to provide information about their insurance options, make contacts for them, or help them find the right representation that they need for getting insurance, and just to reiterate the importance of making sure that their valuables are insured. And also that, to reiterate one more time, not to work without a permit. We can almost always help somebody come up with a solution for their construction or renovation needs, but if they wait and we find out they're constructing or they've done demolition without a permit, quite often they lose quite a bit, if not losing the whole property, because as you know, we can only permit a certain amount of work on each structure based on its value. So we encourage everybody to continue to communicate with us, to come in. We are always glad to assist in construction and insurance questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask, Linda, can I ask you a question, please?
Sure.
In the presentation, and I know that at Tampa Bay Regional Planning, they're always talking about CRAs and the mitigation and stuff. And it was amazing to me how many communities do not have the CRA program, do not implement it. So I think that, yeah, we are very fortunate that you've worked as hard as you have on it. But my question is do you know how many communities of the 26 municipalities in Pinellas County, how many of them are CRA? And if some of them aren't, how do they develop that 5-year plan if not everybody's included? Is that a viable question?
I don't know off the top of my head how many
Okay.
are and which communities are. Most of the island communities are in the CRA. Throughout the country, many communities decide not to be because it's so expensive, and it's very difficult to meet all the credentials or criteria for review. It's getting harder all the time because anywhere where we used to be, many places that local governments on the coast used to be able to get credit for their actions and their programs, they're no longer provided that credit because it's really an insurance program. And if we don't get the credit, then we all pay higher insurance on the coast, and that's long-term. The goal is to make the insurance program solvent. So sometimes interior communities that don't have large rivers running through them can get credit for things that we cannot. So most communities nowadays, if they have a CRS program, end up with somebody working full-time on it, because if you don't keep track of the records every day, then when your cycle review comes around, they've gotten to the point now that when they pull your records, they have to be 90% correct. And if they find any error anywhere on a record, the whole thing is considered incorrect. So it's really a monstrous task. We are currently in our cycle review and are in the process actually of trying to negotiate with the ISO, because although FEMA has told us that they really are impressed with our program and they've been referring other people to us to ask how we've put it together, and that they were very happy with the staff's response to the putting the program together. When they did our review, they reviewed 8 years worth of time frame, and we're going to penalize the city for things that happened 7 and 8 years back. Even though they've all been corrected, they wanted to apply today's standards to things that were done 7 and 8 years ago, even though they weren't required back then. So we're in the process now of trying to make sure that the city is properly represented before them. Otherwise, what would happen is everybody's insurance deduction percentage will be reduced. So a lot of communities just don't want to pay in taxes what it requires to carry almost a full-time person worth of work. It's something that each community has to make a decision on, whether getting that insurance credit is going to be worth it to them. And the more difficult it becomes year after year to meet those criteria, the less it's worthwhile. You know, if we're not going to be getting anything back for the citizens, then you have to wonder, well, why are we paying for the effort? So that's why you see people pulling out of it now, here and there.
Thank you for your comments. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll open the floor for public comment if anyone has anything on this subject. Floor is closed. Next, we have a discussion on conflicting language from the BOC Policy Handbook. City Attorney?
If you look on page 36 of your packet, you will find the language from the charter, the language from the handbook, two potential clarifications if you wanted to go that route. It appears that the charter says special meetings may be held at the call of the mayor, comma, by a majority of the commission members, comma, with no less than 24 hours notice in writing to each member and the public. It's written a little bit ambiguously. It could be clarified by inserting the word or. Special meetings may be held at the call of the mayor or by a majority of the commission members with no less than 24 hours notice in writing to each member and the public. To change the charter, you have to go to referendum, and it will go to the electorate to vote on. I think it's been interpreted in the past that special meetings may be held at the call of the mayor. Then those meetings are called. So the handbook says special meetings may be called by the mayor, by a majority of the commission, or by the city manager with appropriate notice, with no less than 24 hours notice in writing to each member and the public. So in the handbook, we've inserted the city manager. That doesn't appear in the charter. That did go before you for review and was approved. We could take that out, or by the city manager. If you don't want the city manager to call them, and it's clearly not expressly in the charter. I think the charter's interpretation that a mayor can call them avoids you having to wait for the next gathering, whether it's a workshop or a meeting, official meeting or official workshop of commission members in order to set a special meeting. So if we have to wait for the next regular meeting or a workshop meeting or another special meeting that's already been called to call a special meeting, that delays the time that it takes to call the special meeting. So it takes longer to actually call a special meeting. So with that, those are the sentences, the charter, the handbook, and some options to reconcile the language if you'd like to pursue that. I think Commissioner Weinstein brought up the item originally, if I'm not mistaken. So you may want to talk about it from here.
Yes, thank you, yeah. I was confused with it. I would have to recommend that we would certainly take out the wording, the city manager, under the, in the handbook, because it has no relevancy, really, if we must follow the charter. And at some time in the future, when the charter committee meets, next year or whatever, then it can be reviewed again if someone wants to bring it up. So I think that we need to take out the wording city manager from the Board of Commissioners handbook. And in both interpretations, my interpretation would be of special meetings may be held at the call of the mayor, comma, by a majority of the commission members, comma. To me, the intent is that you have to have the mayor and a majority of the, that the mayor would call it, and then the city manager would do a consensus of the rest of the commission to get a consensus to call a special meeting. So it would have.
As long as that's done at a sunshine meeting, the city manager can't call around and get a vote by consensus individually with you. It would have to be done in the sunshine.
Yeah, that's what I meant, because we can't do, how could we do it without the city manager? Yeah, right, exactly. So how would we do it without the city manager then polling each commissioner?
Yeah, no, you can't do that. You have to come to a meeting.
Oh.
Yeah, if I may, the way it's just to keep everybody from having an issue involving a sunshine law situation, because the mayor can't communicate with anybody directly but with me. The problem is if I poll everybody, it's like I'm calling the meeting and I can't call the meeting. So the only way right now, unless you all agree that the handbook that you all voted on, I guess in March or April, whenever that was done, was your interpretation of it, minus the fact that it says city manager in there and it's plain, I can't call a special meeting. But if you take the rest of the language that you have in there as being mayor or with the city commissioners, because the comma there would fit in with the city manager being in place. I think the intent was that it was or, because it's almost impossible for the Board of Commissioners to call a special meeting because you can't talk to each other.
Yeah, I always thought it was either or.
So, but again, it's for a decision if that's what you all meant when you did that back in March or April and passing the handbook. I just have a problem with the city manager being in there because it's clear I can't do that.
Yes, that was my original thought, but and the word or is not in there. So, yeah, I know that's what we're here to
I think
discuss.
if we're doing a strict reading and you want to make sure that everything you do is beyond challenge, the mayor would say, I would like to have a special meeting on whatever day, you pick the day, and then you get a majority of the commission members to vote on that at a meeting, and then that special meeting will be set, so you'll reconvene on whatever day. For example, if the mayor wanted to call a special meeting on January 17th, she'd say, I'd like to call, today she would come and say, I'd like to call a special meeting on January 17th. Are you all available? The subject matter is blah, blah, blah. And then you would take a vote on whether to have that special meeting.
Or suppose it's an emergency.
It's more difficult for an emergency. The way the charter is written, you would have to get a majority of the commission members, and the only way you can do that is at a meeting. So
Well,
it makes it difficult.
The charter does
So
not have the
I'd
word
recommend that,
"or."
we put to the voters next time you get a chance to change the charter to or.
Hey, Ralph.
Sure.
I'm not sure which, I think it's 4.6. I don't have my code book in front of me. But it reads something to the effect that the city manager has absolute power, blah, 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 blah. And then it says, except if it's overruled by the employee handbook, blah, blah. There's a few more exceptions in there.
Or the charter.
Right, so the charter,
City
in that
manager
case, the charter
5.4.
doesn't supersede it. The charter with the exception that, and this, the city, because I think the city manager should be able to, absolutely be able to call a special meeting, because as Maggie's saying, in a case of an emergency or a timely situation, we can't all get together and vote on something like that. So I think that's silly. And the city manager has direct connections to all of us and can call a meeting just on the fly without even having to get a majority. So I like that part. But is there anywhere in that section that we could use to say, okay, this is an exception?
You could go to 5.4.
Yeah, that's one. I think that's one.
11, 11, and it says, perform such other duties as are specified in the charter or may be required by the Board of Commissioners. So if this Board of Commissioners said one of his powers that's required is to call special meetings, we could do that in the handbook. I think that's the defensible way we would defend what's in the handbook.
And we don't have to
right
go to
now.
referendum. We don't have to do anything. We can make the change in the handbook and then we're good.
I think we could do a resolution whereby you all vote to give him the power under 5.411.
I love it.
Okay. That way, if we have, a hurricane or extreme storm event, or there's something we need to respond to.
I think if it was an emergency, I'd do my best to get everybody together. But if you'd like, I'll prepare a resolution and put it on the agenda for January then.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that might be the answer. Thank you.
Floor is open for public comment on this item. Floor is closed.
That's 5.411.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion topics to be added to the January 21st Town Hall meeting. I first of all would like to suggest that the city manager put out, or Kurt put out something to the public asking them what they would like to have on there.
Sure, that's a great idea. I think we've publicized, or we started publicizing the 21st as a date, but that's great. I'll definitely put that out.
Yeah, if you throw it on Nextdoor or something like that, people will respond to it. Don't worry, they'll as long as it's an open forum and they can chat. We don't want the thing to get overloaded, and I mean, a lot of the questions are going to be coming directly at us too. So we better study up on. But we got to keep the topics limited, because there's going to be a lot of off the wall questions, I have a feeling. So
My recommendation would be just that, Commissioner, if we can try to limit it to 2 or 3 items that we're going to specifically address, and then kind of open form it. My plans are, obviously myself and the staff will be here too, so if there's something that you're not quite sure of, we can throw it at the particular department to answer, or myself. So, but I think it's great that we're getting out to the community in a public forum.
yeah, the only thing I would add currently on this is just an update on all the construction that's going on, from the 150th to, and I know by this meeting, a lot of it will be done, but there's going to be next phases and things along the line there. But I think just an overall construction update would probably help.
For the roadways?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, and City Manager, I'd like to know if incorporated in that liveaboard vessels, you could give an update on that, on anything that we have for that idle speed, no wake.
Okay.
Because that's really a combination also on that. I mean, it's still to do with the waterways, and I would think that based on the response from the public last time we opened this subject, I think it was last February or March, we really haven't gotten anything concluded with the Sheriff's Department. So maybe if the City Manager, and staff can work on finding out where we are with that idle speed, no wake, then that would help.
Okay,
That issue.
just so everybody is aware of it, and I agree, I think we need to put on it, but we have been making some headway, definitely with the annexation of the water issue. We've made contacts with the help of our lobbyists up in Tallahassee directly with FWC, and they're now want a resolution and then the ordinance change. So if I have it done in time for the January meeting, you'll also have a resolution on the speed zone change for the water by Crystal Island in that area. And you also will have the speed zone change for FDOT, a resolution to approve for 150th.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, but that's an excellent suggestion. We'll put that on, and you'll be hearing about all that again when we come into the January meeting on the 14th, but just to give you a little bit of a tidbit on it.
Any more discussion from the commission? I'll open the floor for public comment. Public comment is coming.
Helen Price, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue in the beautiful city of Madeira Beach. I thought we were having the town meeting so we could talk about how much development the citizens are willing to tolerate in these PDAs and things that are going to be negotiated in the future. I didn't see that on there.
I think it's all part and parcel. We're going to discuss that. I mean, that's what we need to talk about, developments.
Okay, because the thing that I saw attached to the thing was liveaboards and road work, and what was the third one?
Update on development.
Oh, impact fees. Yeah, I'm sorry, Helen, I think it's kind of a living document at the moment. We're kind of just still developing it, but that's a great idea. I think that's something.
Development and
Yeah.
what,
Right.
I think we can come to some sort of consensus on what benefits we can get out of future development, of any future development that happens, and what kind of limitations we want to put on them and all that good stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure whether or not we put it on the agenda, it's going to get brought up, so
Okay.
I think we should be
I'm
ready for
sorry
that
for the
question.
confusion. I was just trying to give them some food for thought on
Okay.
some of the topics that I hear, so obviously it's their decision to
Maybe
make.
it's too big now.
Yes.
Maybe the development is a survey or something. I don't know. Just a thought.
I just thought of one more thing we could talk about it if you have the information, and that's you're going to investigate the closing and opening of the bridge.
Yes, we haven't, the last I knew, we haven't heard back yet from the, I think it's the Army Corps of Engineers, but, hopefully by the time we get to the 21st, I'll have some type of an update.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Floor is now closed. Next, we have consultant law firms that the city currently uses. City attorney?
Yes, in your packet, you have some information on existing contracts with the special magistrate and Gray Robinson. I had sent some materials over that didn't get printed and included in the packet on Friday. I've distributed them on the dais. You'll see pictures of the attorneys and their bios for Tom Gonzalez, Julia Mandel, both from the Gray Robinson firm, Matthew McConnell and Andrew Dickman from Dickman Law Firm, and Bart Valdez from DSK Law Group, which is the special magistrate that we have. And today would be for discussion, and then we can bring these engagement letters back to you at the next regular meeting.
Ralph, I just have one
If that's your
question.
pleasure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have one question. I appreciate the information, but my interpretation of what this is, or what our code says, is that whenever there's this instance, each individual instance that you need to use an outside attorney, you bring the issue to us, and we decide whether to go forward with approving an outside attorney. I personally can't vet counselors or attorneys. That's not my specialty, and I don't think anybody on the board here wants to or can probably read through this and say this is a good attorney versus this is a bad attorney. I just want to make sure that I think we're all clear that in order for our legal department to go out and hire an outside counsel, that issue, not the attorney, that issue is brought to our attention first, and then we vote on that. That's how I read the section. I don't, if people disagree, that's fine. I just want to, like I said, I'd appreciate this, but I don't even know why we would have engagement letters until we have an issue.
Yep, I wanted to put these before you because we employ them at your discretion. Tom Gonzalez currently serves as a labor attorney for employment issues that arise on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes these issues arise so quickly that we really don't have time between the day the
we will
question
now, though, that
arises
the city
and
manager could call a special meeting real quick, so we could be good.
Well, yeah, but we have ongoing things, HR, and then we have ongoing land use things. So those things from Gray Robinson, we would like to get engagement letters on. In terms of the special magistrate is the other one. That was signed in 2016. It may be time to go for RFP on that if you'd like. We could do something to put together an RFP, but we do have a meeting every month for special magistrate. They hear not only code enforcement, but they also hear variances. So that special magistrate is an important position, and it's an ongoing thing that happens each and every month. So rather than coming to you each and every month and getting approval, we have an ongoing contract with them. And then in terms of if we have to use any other lawyers for any other conflict, I would come to you ahead of time when we do that. And the substitute, I did want you to see who they are and their background and their bio, so you knew who Matthew is and Andrew, and if they happen to be sitting here for me because I'm sick or in the hospital or something, that you know who they are and you're comfortable with them. And I contract with them. They've agreed to my rates, and I pay them directly rather than the city. So.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
And we will bring this stuff to you, and in the future, if there is something that comes up, say, for example, where we do have a conflict and there's a grievance hearing and we need more than one attorney, I'll bring that to you ahead of time so you can decide what you want to do. If you even want to have attorneys at a grievance hearing, we've heard also from a member of the public who is an attorney that one way to do it may be to have no attorneys at grievance hearings. So that is another option as well. But the city manager and human resources and Linda Portel at Planning and Zoning do have questions that come up pretty frequently where we need to get answers. So that's why these particular ones are coming before you.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to add, I do believe we need to look at the magistrate's position since it hasn't been looked at since 2016, and let's see what's out there for securing the services of a magistrate that we use not only for planning and zoning issues, but we also use for code enforcement. I just want to make sure that we have the best individual at the right price.
Okay, good idea.
I certainly agree with that.
Mayor, we should take public comment before we move on.
Floor is open for public comment. Floor is closed. Any more discussion from the board? Okay, going forward.
The next item is also mine. It's a policy on requests for legal fee payments. So we get what I would call a demand letter. I've engaged counsel. This is what I spent them for. I would like to get reimbursed, or I would like to have advancement of legal counsel. And this would be a process that we would follow. There's a draft, a one-page that's been distributed. It says draft payment policy. And the city manager and I have been working on this. We wanted to bring it to you for discussion. What would happen first is if we received a request for payment of attorney's fees, we would route that prior to payment to the Human Resource Department. the appropriate department head, the finance director, the city manager, and the city attorney. So if any attorney sends a bill for any legal services to the city, this is how it would be routed. And we would review those requests, each one of these departments. So that way we could see what it was for, the hours that were spent, who did it, is it unauthorized, was it pre-authorized, was it unauthorized, is it more in the nature of a demand letter. So 2, all claims or demands for attorney's fees, I would call that like a demand letter, shall be immediately provided to the city's insurance company for a coverage determination through the Human Resource Department, and copies shall be provided to the finance director, city manager, and city attorney. And the city manager wanted us to have copies of that so we know what's going on at each one of those levels, at finance, at city manager, and city attorney. But typically, if we had a like say a commission on ethics complaint against an elected official, that would go to Karen Paulson at Human Resources. She would provide us copies, and it would go to the insurance company. The insurance company would determine, are you entitled to a defense, a legal defense? If they say yes, then they'll provide you and the city a letter that says you are entitled to coverage under our insurance policy. That attorney will then represent you. You can talk to the insurance company if you don't like that attorney. You can always work with them on finding one that you do like. And then the third category is claims that are denied coverage by the insurance company. So if we sent something to the insurance company that said, no, you don't have insurance for that, and we are not going to advance legal counsel for defense or reimburse any attorney's fees that you may have spent, then we would bring it to the Board of Commissioners, and you, as the board, would take that up and determine whether you want to pay it or not. There's different circumstances and there's different competing public interests. So this would allow you to discuss those in each case and decide what it is that the majority wanted to do with that claim. And this is for discussion. This is one way of doing it. There's a public policy that Mr. Hendrick brought up, that if you are seeking appointed people, if you're trying to get people to run for office, and certainly there's a flurry of commission on ethics complaints going against commissioners, it can be discouraging or have a chilling effect on people wanting to run or wanting to be appointed. But if they know that the city has insurance to cover them, to defend any of those claims, it's easier to get people to run or be appointed for office or agree to be employed by the city. So that is one of the concerns. There is a concern in terms of what you're entitled to and when you're not entitled to fees. Typically, you'd be entitled to reimbursement if you prevail in a claim against you. If you lose a claim and it's found to be outside the scope of your services, then typically you would not be entitled to reimbursement. Typically, the insurance company provides what they call advancement of counsel, so that you can defend yourself to the point of whether you prevail or don't prevail. The insurance company typically doesn't claw back, although they have that right to do so if they want to. It's their money that they've spent. If the insurance company declined coverage and we were saying, well, we're going to provide an attorney for you or submit reimbursement to us after it's over, then you can make that determination. Was it something that was inside the scope of your duty, or was it something that was wholly outside the scope of your duty? We don't really reimburse. We don't probably ever want to reimburse someone for like a DUI, obviously. But if it's something that was within the scope of their duties, then you may want to reimburse them. The prior board made a policy that you would always defend people, I believe, against claims that were not internal claims, so that you would all have the comfort level to be able to run for office and not worry about having to face legal defense, even if you were determined to be in violation. Sometimes the violations can be de minimis. There's a sunshine law thing where you follow the advice of the attorney, or for whatever reason, there was a de minimis or a violation that maybe wasn't all your fault, even though it was outside the scope of your duties, that on occasion you may want to pay. So this would allow the whole board to consider those.
Ralph, my only question, and I think this is kind of a good jumping off point, but do we have to decide, and you're right, Mr. Hendricks brought up a good point yesterday, who has the right to go to the insurance company for coverage? I mean, does a member of one of our self-appointed boards that's unpaid, I mean, obviously we're paid employees of the city, so obviously we're covered, but I mean, I think you're right. I think you'll have nobody serving on boards if they've got to sit there and watch every word that comes out of their mouth. They're not going to be honest and truthful and be able to help the city. So, I think that they should be covered as well. But where does it end? I don't know. Do part-time people get coverage? Is it only full-time? Is it only 30 hours a week plus? I think we got to draw a big circle and say you're inside the circle or you're outside the circle. And I think once we do that, it'll make it easier.
What I've tried to do at number one is say all requests. So anybody makes a request, hopefully it's in writing because that's the easiest way to get it to the insurance company. So Karen would direct them, please put in writing something, a request in writing to me that I can present to the insurance company. Then they would make a determination of policy coverage. If they say there's no coverage, then it would come to you for a determination. That request would then come to you. Do you want to pay for an attorney for that particular issue?
Okay, so what about a tricky matter like if it's an internal squabble? So let's say somebody accuses somebody of something else, and I mean, is it the first one that gets to Karen gets the insurance company to back them, and the other person has to defend? Because the insurance company can't defend both sides, right?
Typically, we don't cover internal investigations or internal matters. It's usually, and I'm not saying you don't, because I know on one occasion you did. You covered Hendrick and
oh, yeah, I'm not even bringing that up. I just, if
there's another one in from Brian Battaglia for Lacey that has been sent to the insurance company, and we're waiting to see if it gets coverage. If it doesn't, then it's going to come to you for a decision.
Okay.
So if there's an internal one, typically we don't, but I'm not going to say never. So they would come to you for a review and a decision.
Okay.
I think that the circumstances can't always be laid out, that there's going to be unforeseen things, and each one is a little bit different. So this way they can all come to you if they're denied coverage at the insurance level. If they get coverage at the insurance level, then they've got lawyers, and that's how they proceed. So it doesn't need to come to you.
I would just like to make a couple of comments. I might take a little bit of a hard-nosed look at this, but I guess I've always felt very responsible and very, responsible for my own actions and my own words, okay, whether it's as a citizen or an elected official. I think that with a civic duty that you provide to anybody, to the community, you have to be accountable for your own stuff, I think that possibly paying or even considering paying for legal fees that because somebody said something wrong is, it's frivolous for the Board of, or to my way of thinking, it's frivolous for the board to pay that, because I think we all have to be accountable for our actions and our words. What I'm saying is, if it's in the scope of your business.
There are two areas where you're entitled.
Okay.
One is under common law, and one is under Florida statutes. And I have a memo on that I sent for distribution, but it didn't make it. But it's a rather technical memo. But I'll send it around to you for the regular meeting when we review this policy and actually vote on a policy. But you are entitled to, in circumstances, if you're accused of a violation and you prevail and the accusations were unfounded, you didn't violate the Sunshine Law, then you're entitled to recovery of the attorney's fee that you spent defending yourself from the Sunshine Law violation. That's one case that you're entitled to.
We just always take it that it's on me. If I make a mistake, then I got to pay the price for it. I guess that's the way I've always been raised, and that's the way I think about it.
It's on you if the allegations are found to be true. And then it would be in the discretion of the board whether they actually wanted to pay those or not, and they could look at, was it something to do with your job, your voting as a Sunshine, or was it sexual harassment at lunchtime, something like that. And then, one might be outside the scope of your services and, probably clearly not entitled to fees, or you probably wouldn't want to pay the fees for something like that, or a DUI or something like that. But if, say, someone were to sue you as an individual board member saying you violated a section of the charter, you wound up through an expensive 18-month litigation, and the court says, no, you didn't violate that charter, then you would be entitled to get your attorney's fees back from the city because it was something you were doing from the diaz while you were performing your duty. If they said, oh, if you did violate the charter, then you might have to pay those attorney's fees back to the city unless the city commission decided, well, no, we think that under this circumstance, you had a reasonable doubt or a reasonable opinion that you thought you were within the ambit of the charter, but even though a judge said you were not, we're still going to pay your attorney's fees. And that would be for you to decide, depending on the circumstances.
Okay, I referred to the comments that were made about performing civic duty, for the community by board members, by, planning commissioners, or any board, okay, bidding committee. And I don't think that really, I don't think that should make or break a good, a civic-minded individual from performing those duties, or from volunteering for a situation, because, well, I guess I just maybe come from an old-fashioned school, but I just don't really.
No, I think that's a good principle to live by, but I think it does happen that in places that are litigious and commissioners are getting sued all the time, it's harder to find people to run for commission. If as soon as you run, you're going to have 5 complaints against you. This way, at least you're covered on that aspect. Otherwise, the case law says this, otherwise only the more affluent people would run for office, knowing that they had to get lawyers and defend themselves.
And then certainly I would think that all avenues have to be accountable by the aggrieved individual, okay, before reimbursement or reconsideration is made by any board to pay those expenses. Yeah, it would have to be a clear shown responsibility that the insurance company, everybody said, yes, you have the right to receive it, but I think that everything needs to be paid by that grieved party before, they need to assume that responsibility until it's shown that it's not the case.
Okay, so what you're discussing is what they call advancement. If the insurance covers the claim, they will give you a lawyer to take you through the claim. That's called advancement. They'll give you a lawyer in advance. If the insurance company says no, it's going to come to the board, and this board can decide whether you want to advance legal coverage or you want to tell them, no, you have to go get your own lawyer and pay the bills as you go. And after you win and after the appeals are done, then you come back to us and then we'll reimburse you for what you spent or for the invoices. So you could do it that way. And that's how this is set up that way. You'll have a decision point at number 3, whether to do advancement or reimbursement or nothing.
Okay, and is that what the services that preferred trust, that our policy with preferred trust, are we talking in connection with that also as much as with an individual legal counsel?
You mean the insurance company?
Preferred trust, that's the insurance company that the city uses that's got a $100,000 aggregate per year. That's,
So
okay.
When Karen sends the claim to them, they review the claim and they see if any of their exclusions apply. One of their exclusions might be outside the scope of your business, your official city business. If it's outside the scope, you have no coverage and you have to go get your own lawyer. And then you can come here and ask for it. I don't think this board would agree to pay attorneys to defend you in a DUI case, for example. But they might decide to defend you on something you said at the diaz and whether or not it violated a charter. So that will be something that you could decide at the decision point number 3.
Okay, well, I understand a
And
little
the
bit
other
more
thing
now
to
than I
keep in
did
mind
before
is
you
that-
started talking.
The other thing to keep in mind, unfortunately, anyone can sue anyone for anything. They file something in the courthouse it means it's a mere allegation. It can be dismissed on a motion to dismiss, and fees can be awarded if it's frivolous. So the legal system has certain ways of taking care of that. But again, it is expensive to get a lawyer, to retain a lawyer and pay the hourly fee as you go along, to the point where even when you ultimately prevail. That's why the insurance company does advancement, because they'd rather see you win these cases. And why you may want to do advancement in the future, depending on what type of claim is made.
Well, that's interesting, actually, because I know personally there was an ethics violation filed against me, for instance, and it was for, I mean, it's been thrown out. You know, it was revealed that it was did not have any substance, so it was taken away. But I just never really thought that even in a case like that, I guess that I would be represented by other counsel, because I thought, well, if they think I did something wrong, well, that's my problem. But thank you for your comments.
It would still be your choice whether to submit a claim to the insurance company or not, if you didn't think that your claim needed legal counsel, that it should go against the $100,000, that you didn't want to use any of it up on a claim that you didn't think had any merit. It's certainly within your discretion not to apply for coverage. So.
Thank you.
Open the floor for public comment. Public comment is closed. Any more discussion from the board? Being no further business, we're adjourned at 4:14.